Well, it's up to, as Georgia said, we don't know what the law said about these stuff. So let's try to learn more and then know what the law stipulates or states for these actions, so that we don't make judgment without having our facts. Well, it's been a lovely time with you all, Julia and Georgia. For the newspaper review, we brought to you the Ghanaian Times, the Daily Graphic, City Newsroom Portal, as Julia said, and My Joy Online. I hope you enjoyed the show. It's been inspiring, educative, somewhat entertaining. Joining us in the studio today is Dr. Jeff Bassey. He is the founder of the Institute of Leadership and Strategy. He joins us in the studio to explore leadership styles and their impact on students. Leadership styles and their impact on students. You can grab a pen, a book, a notepad, as we'll be delving through the leadership roles. You're still listening to the Morning Dew right here on Radio GIJ 97.7 megahertz. Our topic for discussion today is exploring leadership styles and their impact on students. Joining us in studio today is Dr. Jeff Bassey. He is the founder of the Institute of Leadership and Strategy. Founder of the Institute of Leadership and Strategy, Dr. Jeff Bassey. You're also streaming live on Radio GIJ 97.7 megahertz on Facebook. You can join our live Facebook feed, send in your comments, or via WhatsApp at 0247 435130. 0247 435130. Dr. Jeff is on the line. To our listeners, do enjoy the show. Hello, good morning, sir. I think we are having some kind of a technical hinge. Hello, good morning, sir. Please, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes,
too,
please, I can hear you now.
Good morning to you and your listeners.
Good morning. Sir, so the topic for discussion today is exploring leadership styles and their impact on students. So we'd want to ask you, what is leadership? Or what that the topic stipulate to you?
Very well. Thank you. Indeed, the topic of leadership is quite an overstretched area, if you may, quite explored, but mostly misunderstood by a number of people. I have been involved in leadership training for particularly corporate institutions, the Bank of Ghana, Coca-Cola, Casaprecon, and all of those organizations, Ghana Revenue Authority, etc. But my understanding of your engagement with me this morning is one that probably speaks to students providing leadership for their colleagues. I imagine those in some positions on campus, be it SRC or some associations, etc. Fortunately, I've also been an SRC president some many years ago. It's about 20 years from now. And so I may have some few ideas to share with you, but I am particularly passionate about conversations of this sort because the same student leaders, be it in National Union of Ghana Students or Student Representative Council, SRC, or some form of clubs or association on campus, they are the same guys who grow into mainstream politics.
Sure.
And so conversations of the sort that speaks to issues of building leadership brand, issues of having personal integrity, but also I guess our interview will also cover what really are the ingredients, or if you may, the main pillars of leadership, from ability to cast vision, ability to carry your team along through communication and making sure they are on the same wavelength with you, the ability of the person in the position to influence others, manage the team, and ensure that we are able to cause major changes that affect students' welfare on campus. I'm sure these are the hearts of the areas that we can have conversations around, just so these young ones can pick some skills, first and foremost, to influence their colleagues and also to build something worthwhile and prepare themselves for higher leadership positions as and when they get into mainstream society.
Okay, so you made mention that you were the SRC president, and then you've also had some roles in some job places that you found yourself in. But what really inspired you to explore those leadership styles, and then how can that impact students?
Very well. I think I will start by mentioning that one of the major myths of leadership, and when I say a myth, I'm talking about a fallacy, something we have all mistaken to be leadership, whereas it is not. The first major myth is the position myth. Position myth. I have been made XYZ, therefore I am a leader. Now, I am not condemning the importance of occupying the position. All I'm saying is that position merely gives you access to leadership. It gives you the opportunity to show leadership. But in itself, may not be leadership because you merely have the opportunity to exercise authority and to apply resources and to direct the actions and inactions of other people. But is that actually um, um, the leadership itself? No. Now, what inspired me in particular, and those organizations I mentioned, I'm not an employee of those companies. I serve as consultant and leadership trainer to a number of those organizations. So what inspired me is that I observed that too many of our managers, people who occupy positions, be it in organizations or in your case, student leaders, too many of our managers are trained in hardcore management with little or no leadership. The resultant effect is how we overmanage our organizations, our positions, and underlead them. And I thought that beyond management, beyond occupying position, beyond having an activity or two to do because you are placed in a position of authority, will also be the need to lead and cause meaningful changes. Now, leadership will always start, for me, I will always ask people, what is your leadership brand? Now, a brand is that strong, positive or negative feeling people get when they hear the name of something or somebody. For instance, if I mention Benz, Mercedes-Benz, you don't start thinking about B-E-N-Z, Benz. You start thinking about class, durability, reliability, comfort, etc. Those are the emotional feelings that erupts in you when you hear Benz. So I ask people, when your name is heard, what comes to people's mind? One that is reliable, one that is probably time conscious, the one that is result driven, goal oriented, or somebody when we put in the position and your name comes up, this guy, are we really see what will happen? But me, I really don't have any major hopes about him. Which of these two do people really, really think about when your name is mentioned on the table? So we first and foremost must start from building a leadership brand, probably answering a few questions to ourselves. What are the general impressions people hold of you? When you appear in the room, do you carry a presence? And simply put, are you a leader? If you are able to build some level of brand, because perception has a lot of impact on whether people take your leadership seriously or not. So you need to first and foremost jump that gun of the brand perception that you build. Probably the next one is you must be clear where you think you are going with your team. Every good leader will start with communicating a vision and a destination. Otherwise, leadership is reduced to just title. Now, those years when I was SRC president, and I must confess that I wasn't a good leader, but I didn't even know. Because for me, all I needed to be sure that I was the leader of my colleagues was for you to call me Presido. Presido, Presido, Presido. That is how we were probably fooling for 1 year. Nothing happened. Nothing happened. We handed over.
Sure.
We enjoyed the position. I drove the SLC vehicle. I slept in the SLC bungalow. All of those goodies came to me, but it took me years after school to realize that I probably just warmed the seat and wasted my colleagues' time, enjoyed the accolade that came with the position. But nothing really happened because there was no clear vision that was communicated to carry my people along and say, hey, listen, by the end of my tenure, this is where we are going. Because for me, the essence of leadership is change and growth. If nothing is growing and nothing is developing, if it is not becoming better, leadership then becomes a waste of everybody's time. So before I took the position, where were we? Where do I intend to get it to by the time my tenure will be over? That will not just remain in your head. You as the leader got to communicate with all of your lieutenants, other people who have something to do with the position, committee members, etc. You need to make sure they are all on the same page because, you see, people don't follow documented plans. People follow the leadership power behind the documented plans. There is no any change that is imposed. It's a change that is most likely going to be opposed. So you don't just impose where you think you are going. You make sure that the people are brought along because involvement breeds commitment. When people are part of the vision crafting, they are better committed to ensuring that it comes to fruition than when you just impose it on them. I am your leader. This is where I think we are going, and that is it. So that is the first major hurdle that must be crossed. After the leader would have, branded himself by your conduct, you have to communicate vision and get everybody on the same page with you.
Okay.
I don't know if you have your next question, but I have four pillars I share in leadership. Vision is one of the four pillars. If you have time, we can deal with the other three.
Okay. Thank you very much. But before I come to the issue of communicating with your lieutenant, you talked about the issue of branding. So how does one spot out his uniqueness, or what makes him unique or stand out?
Well, one of the major tools of leadership is in your ability to influence people. Because influence for me is synonymous to leadership. Because fundamentally, what is leadership? Ability to get things done through other people. And what is influence? Your ability to cause people to willingly do what hitherto they will not do on their own, except when you become their leader. Part of the ingredients or major areas to be able to influence people, and your ability to influence them means that you have branded yourself positively in their minds. Number one is to walk your talk. I call it, do what you say you would do. Walk your talk is WYT. Walk your talk. Do what you say you would do. In this part of the world, too many people say too many things and eventually tend to do very little or nothing at all. So I tell people, if you know you won't do it, don't say it. Now, if you say it, make sure you do it. Because then it creates a certain brand in people's mind that you are the guy that walks your talk. Otherwise, we are reduced to what I humorously call netto. Netto is no action, talk only. Now, we don't want netto leaders. We want leaders who talk and do or walk their talk. The other way to brand yourself is to live by example. Now, the Akans have a proverb. I don't speak very good Korean, so the Akans have a proverb that I can paraphrase in the English language that sought to suggest that you don't stand in the midst of ants and remove them from your body. Literally, what it's supposed to mean is that by the time you are removing the ones up chest, more are climbing from your legs or something. In other words, you got to stand outside the host of ants in order to take them off from your body. What that proverb sought to teach us is that you can't be a part of a problem and claim to be solving the same problem. So meetings start at 7:30 a.m. The leader walks in at 7:50. That is 20 minutes behind schedule. Now, the next time you announce 7:30, what the people have heard is 7:50 and not 7:30.
Sure.
Because anytime the leader's actions come in conflict with his words, the followers choose the action and not the words. Your action is too loud in the ears of the followers that they don't hear what you say. They actually hear what you do, not what you say. So your ability to live by example is the second one. Perhaps let me just share a third area to probably brand yourself in the minds of the people. It's for the leader to always have positive attitude. You see, when I say positive attitude, I'm talking about your ability to remain confident and optimistic. Now, courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is confronting fear. There's a reason to be afraid, but you do it anyway. Now, when leaders begin to communicate fear, they break the team they lead because they don't even have the stamina they have. There are 1,001 reasons why the team will fail, why the group will not succeed. There are also 1,001 reasons why the team, the group will succeed. It is the leader's responsibility to, one, first and foremost, to remain positive and optimistic. Then you can infect others, because leadership is infectious. Whatever the leader does or believes in, the people copy the leader cogently, copiously, both the conscious and the unconscious actions of the leader. So I tell people in leadership positions that the day you become a leader, you no longer live for yourself. You live for the people who look up to you, because all of your actions will be interpreted to be good ways of doing it. So if the leader says, this thing is going to work, all we need to do is to do a few things here and there. Life is infectious and repetitive. So when the leader believes in it and start acting on it, it affects everybody else. Then you are branded in the minds of the people as the doer, the guy who makes things possible, etc. Probably because we are just having a few minutes of conversation. On a good day, I do a 2 full day leadership training for managers. And so I'll leave that bit here on how to create a brand and position yourself to be the guy who can influence the people to delivering on results.
Now, moving to the leadership styles, you mentioned about we communicating to our lieutenant. That is having you being a group, a team player in that sense. So, what is your comment on someone who is an autocratic leader and then imposes on his lieutenants, as you may say?
Well, I had already mentioned that any change that is imposed is a change that will most likely be opposed. Now, you as students, I don't know if you had ever come across the concept of Douglas McGregor's Theory X and Theory Y. Theory X says that leaders believe that employees or team members are lazy, they are self-seeking, they are laid back, never to be trusted to put in a good day's work by themselves. And so the only way to get any result at all from them is to keep them under strict surveillance. You either threaten them with punishment or you promise them reward. Never trust their hand. These are the guys who normally will adopt the autocratic style of leadership. But then there is also a theory why that says, hey, listen, it behoves on the leader to communicate, cast vision, provide strategic direction, create the enabling environment, communicate effectively, allow the guys to participate in your leadership. And these guys tend to adopt the democratic style of leadership. The truth is that we cannot say that we adopt one 100% and neglect the other one. But I normally say that 80% of the time, the leader must be democratic, as in involve the people in decision making, etc. Maybe just some 20% of the time, the followers really cannot see what the leader is doing. So the leader got to say, hey, listen, this is where I think we should go. And even if you have to be that way, you need to, in communicating the change or the new direction, you need to tick some 3 boxes. Number 1, where are we going, or what do we want to do now? Number 2, why must we do that? And that is where the autocratic leaders fail. Beyond communicating what, you also need to explain the why, more or less like the nature and intent of what we want to do. And the third one is, what is a need for all of us when we all get there together? Because the human mind is designed to be conservative and resistant to change, you are likely going to have a lot of oppositions if you do not communicate the why. Once you communicate only the what, ego comes to play. The truth is that you are leading, but you are only leading your colleagues, people who are the same level with you, and they see you as you don't have any special authority that we do not have. So anytime you communicate the what, you must also add the why. And that is what breaks the ego, and if you may, that level of resistance in people against your directive. And for me, involvement breeds commitment. Once they see themselves to be consulted in the decision makings, they are better committed to its implementation than if it was imposed on them. And then let me cover these two. Students, leaders, I will imagine, are lead their colleagues Gen Zs. They themselves are Gen Zs, and they are leading Gen Zs. I belong to the Gen Y, the generation just before the Gen Z.
Okay.
I would say that leading Gen Zs, whether you are a Gen Y or you are a Gen Z yourself, these guys are literally very independent minded, and imposing on them or adopting autocracy, at the end of the day, you the leader, you remain alone. You'll be taking a stroll alone without any followers if you adopt autocracy in leading them. Loads and loads of research have been done on generational differences and leadership, and the most difficult as of now group of people to lead are the Gen Zs. So if you really want to go far and to get support, because without followers, without other people, you are just taking a stroll alone, you are not even a leader. You want to make sure that you lower your autocracy, just so that you can get the buy-in of everybody and then drive. And then you see, when these guys complete school and they get into mainstream society, they will realize that you sometimes only grow at the recommendation of other people, at the references of other people, at the stroke of somebody's pen. You may not even go up there. We have what we call peer appraisal at the workplace. What your colleagues say about you to your superiors determine whether you grow or not. And there is no such better place to practice it than now. When you are in school, make sure you are not autocratic, because you get that attitude into the place of work and you never get recommended or referenced by your colleagues, and you remain at the same place.
Okay, so with the issue of Gen Y and then Gen Z in mind, specifically Gen Z's in mind, and then generational difference in terms of leadership roles, what role does a leader play when he finds himself or herself in a Gen Z environment where followers do not pay heed to instructions or decisions that come in?
A lot of strategies will come to play. There is one we call meeting behind the meeting. Before we get into that mainstream meeting, you know the vociferous ones and the ones who are likely to throughout your direction or your effort. You engage them and get their buy-in. You see, because of the egoistic nature of man, and especially it is very dominant in the Gen Zs, and I don't condemn Gen Zs. That is their nature, and particularly if you are born and bred in our part of the world, in Africa here, where you hear a lot of no from your parents. You are not allowed to challenge authority or to question leadership or to demand accountability. You are sort of tamed, and you don't build a curious mindset, and it doesn't help us. So when I see Gen Zs breaking that kind of thing that we were raised with, where you are told to take instruction and don't question an elder or your leader, we don't build curious mindset, and we can't face off with the rest of the world. I've spoken in different countries around the world, and I have seen very young people who think purely as adults because they are given the room to analyze situations, debate issues, and be convinced of directive, and not because an elder says you should do it this way. And so the positive side of Gen Z I see is that curious mindset they are developing that pushes the frontiers of leadership. But that same curious mindset means that you cannot adopt the same leadership style to lead a Gen Y guy, a Gen X guy, just as the Gen Z guy. What it means is that for him, we don't cook the food and call him to come to the dining table. He is aware from the beginning which ingredients we are putting in that food. So he participates in the kitchen processes before we get to the dining hall processes. And so bottom line, involvement in decision making, communicating the conventional wisdom behind a directive being given. Now, let me give you this analogy. It was actually a video that I saw on social media some time ago, but because I am a leadership trainer, I interpret nearly everything around me from leadership perspective. So the video goes this way. Let me narrate it very briefly because of our time. A teacher walks into the classroom and saw and pick one of the pupils, one of the maybe class 2 girl. Hello, girl, if I gave you 2 apples and added another 2, how many apples would you have? And the girl said 5. And the teacher said, no, that is wrong. 2 apples plus 2 apples, how many would you now have? He said 5. The teacher literally asked his personal assistant, bring me apples. So the teacher literally physically gave him 2 apples, added another 2. Girl, now how many apples do you have? The girl still said 5. At this time, the teacher was getting angry. They said, okay, so if I gave you 2 oranges and added another 2, how many oranges would you have? And the girl said 4. The teacher said the principle is the same. If 2 and 2 oranges would be 4, how come 2 and 2 apples would be 5? So the teacher asked for the final time. 2 apples, another 2 I gave you. How many apples would you have? The girl still insisted, I now have 5 apples. The teacher pulled her ears. Then the girl said, it's because I already have 1 apple in my bag. So if I add your 2 plus your 2 plus my 1, it would be 5. Now, who is the teacher in this analogy? The teacher here is the leader.
Exactly.
Who is the student? The student here is the follower. All it needed on the part of the teacher to ask when the girl said 5 was, why do you say 5? If that barrier was crossed, that
The
barrier
issue
of
of why.
engagement, I gave you 2 apples, I added another 2. How many apples do you have now? You say 5. Why do you say 5? Right from the beginning, the student would have had opportunity of explaining that. I have 1 apple, so if I add it to your 2 and your 2, it will be 5. But the teacher have a preconceived answer in his mind that 2 and 2 will always be 4. But the student knew something, that is the hidden apple, that the teacher didn't know. If the teacher had communicated and operated with open mindset, that whole argument and banter would have been avoided. And for me, when you are leading Gen Zs, this is the kind of mindset you should have. Don't have a preconceived mindset. Engage them and find out why they think the way they think. And in any case, I always say that 4 plus 5 is not the only way to find 9. 4 plus 5 is 9, so is 7 plus 2. So is 1 plus 8, so is 6 plus 3. The goal is let us find 9. The method to finding 9 is not always determined by just the leader. It can be found by anybody, but at the end of the day, we are looking for 9. So fix your mind on the result, the end goal, and not the means to getting that, because Gen Zs want to have their own means once in a while through some guidance and some supervision. Let them find a way. If you ask a typical Gen Y, move from Accra to Tema, the first question he will ask you is, which road do you want me? Which road do you want me to use?
Sure.
When you ask a Gen Z, We want to go to Tema. The only question we ask you, when do you want me to be in Tema?
Sure.
Because whether he's going to use motorway or Spinters Road or Beach Road, he doesn't want you to determine it for him. And then why won't you, which road should I use? Should I use the Accra Tema motorway? At what speed should I be driving? Because they can be quite procedural. Whilst Gen Zs don't like that kind of procedural way of doing things, it is the result that is important to him much more than which method do we use in arriving at the results.
The results is much more important. 4 plus 5 is 9. 6 plus 3 is also 9. The goal is 9, but the method is different and is being determined by the leader or the follower. So with issue of children as adults, I have termed something called age as a barrier. You see, there is a practical scenario. We have children in leadership where they have followers who they are even older than. So a practical example with the teacher and then child issue, changing size, child as the leader and the teacher as the subordinate over them. Most individuals tend to use age as a means to determine who is a leader, and in a large or to the large extent, they tend to disrespect the children because they feel they are older than them. What is your take on that?
First and foremost, it's a fundamental philosophical issue in our side of the world that we associate old age to wisdom.
You have just 1 minute.
And of course, I am now an adult at 40. Actually, I don't feel like a child. So probably I can just say that now I have tasted both worlds. I used to be a child, now I'm an adult. Now, so I am an adult too. I will not be here to undermine the oldies or the importance of maturity, etc. But let me say this with all humility and with respect, with no disrespect to our elders, that today, it is only in primitive societies that we associate old age to wisdom. Young man, the one interviewing me, I don't know how old you are, but let me say this to you. A G8 country, a developed country like France, is led by an under 40 gentleman.
You have no credit in your
We're having a technical hinge. Don't worry, we'll bring him back. Going for a short interlude. Dr. Jeff is right back on the line. So very sorry to you for what happened. We had some little technical hinge here in the studio.
That's quite understandable.
Okay. And we're talking about age being a barrier, and then you were also deliberating on your point.
Very well. So I was creating an analogy. First and foremost, I started that point with the fact that I think that age being seen as the symbol of wisdom is a philosophical issue, it's a cultural issue in Africa. And I was drawing your attention to the fact that France is a developed country. France is a G8 country. France is led by an under 40, a person who is under 40 as their president. We have actually legislated, our constitution says you can't even contest to be president until you are 40. So can you imagine a country as Ghana, as small as Ghana is like a dot on the world map if you have taken a close look at the world map. If you are not 40 with 30 million people in a GDP of how much is being led at France is being led by somebody who is not 40 years old. It's a generic problem we have to tackle carefully. But we needed the young guy themselves to also be proving that when given the opportunity, they will not be as reckless as we all think. And to our elders, I want to plead or mention that let us take people on their merit and not by their age. Because for me, having interacted with some younger men from my dictionary, they are actually young. They are persons except they are younger in age. It is the information at your disposal, the exposure you have that determines your thinking, your choices, and not how long you have been there. I had always created this analogy to people when it comes to these issues of age and experience. If two couples means 4 human beings, right? Now, if two couples, couple A, have dated as in premarital relationship, have dated for 2 years, and the guy never got broke once, and had no idea how a woman responds or reacts at home when a man is broke. Couple B have dated for just 6 months. The guy got broke 6 times. Every month, one broke. Usually around 20th, 24th. You know what I'm talking about. Just before payday. So this guy have dated for 6 months, have been broke for 6 times. Today, both couples are married. The one that have dated 2 years, the one that have dated 6 months. And both men are broke. Which of the two have more experience in how a woman reacts when a man is broke? I bet you the one who is 6 months, though his period is shorter, a lot of things happen in that period. Nothing major happen. What am I trying to say? Experience is occurrences and reactions to events, not how long, how old you have been around. What happened? How did you react to it? Culminates into your experience and your choices and your leadership ability much more than I have been here for 20 years. Well, nothing significant happened. You didn't know the initiative, you only took directives. And so why must I trust you over the other guy who is constantly getting me solutions because of the exposure he had had in time past, etc. And so I call them young persons, not really children. All right?
Age is just a number, and young person.
The young or the elderly, we all have some rules to school.
Sure. Thank you very much, sir. And then you also made mention about walking your talk. So now let's come down to the roles of student or the leadership roles of students here on campus. Students are on campus mainly to achieve academic excellence, and then they add leadership roles to it. So how do you strike the balance as a student to know that this is the length at which my leadership roles get to, and then this is where my focus on education also comes to play?
Well, we have to strike a balance between the two. Let me say something that can be a bit controversial. Now, the PRO of that, the one in charge of communication, just as I have seen student leaders